Can you really buy your way to the top? Or does greatness demand something money just cannot purchase? That question is at the heart of one of the most fascinating rivalries in the modern world. Two cities, two deserts of ambition, one built on centuries of quiet strategy, and the other on the audacity of oil money and sheer spectacle. Dubai and Singapore. On the surface, they look like twins. Gleaming skylines, world-class airports, tax-free havens that pull in billionaires, business empires, and tourists from every corner of the planet. But look closer, and you start to see the cracks in the comparison. Dubai has studied Singapore like a student studies a genius classmate. It has copied the homework, mimicked the style, and even borrowed the vision. And yet, decade after decade, Singapore keeps pulling ahead in the ways that truly matter. So why is that? Why can a city with virtually no natural resources, sitting on a tiny island with zero oil wealth, consistently outperform a place drowning in petrodollars? The answer is deep, surprising, and honestly, a little uncomfortable. Let us get into it. Point 1. The foundation of trust. Let us start with the thing that holds every great city together. Trust. Not the kind you feel between friends, but the institutional kind. The trust a business owner has that the courts will protect them. The trust an investor has that the rules will not change overnight. The trust a citizen has that their government is working for them and not the other way around. Singapore built that trust deliberately and painfully over decades. When Kuan Yew took power in 1965, he made a choice that most leaders never dare to make. He decided that corruption would not be tolerated. Not in small doses, not as a cultural norm, not even at the top. He paid civil servants exceptionally well, prosecuted his own friends when they broke the rules, and created an anti-corruption agency with real teeth. The result was a government that people actually believed in. Dubai, on the other hand, operates in a system where the ruling family holds enormous unchecked power. Laws can shift with political winds. Businesses have faced sudden contract cancellations and legal reversals that left foreign investors stunned. There is no independent judiciary in the truest sense. And while Dubai has made real progress, that foundation of deep institutional trust, the kind Singapore has spent 60 years building, simply does not exist in the same way. And trust, once lost or never fully established, is the hardest thing in the world to rebuild. Point 2. Education as a national religion. Here is something that will blow your mind. Singapore consistently ranks at the absolute top of global education surveys, not just in Asia, in the entire world. Their 15-year-olds outperform students from the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and nearly every other nation on standardized tests in mathematics, science, and reading. That is not an accident. That is a national obsession. Singapore treats education the way some countries treat their military. It is a matter of survival. With no oil, no minerals, no vast land, the only resource Singapore ever had was its people. So it invested in them relentlessly. Teachers are among the highest paid and most respected professionals in the country. Curriculum is constantly updated. Critical thinking is built into the system from the earliest ages. Dubai has spent massively on building impressive university campuses and attracting foreign institutions to set up branches there. It looks incredible from the outside. But importing education brands is not the same as building a genuine culture of learning from the ground up. Singaporean students grow up in a society where intellectual achievement is celebrated and expected. That cultural foundation shapes everything, from the startups people build to the policies governments design. You cannot buy that mindset. You have to grow it over generations. Point 3. The talent they keep versus the talent they borrow. Every global city needs talent. The question is whether you grow it locally or rent it from abroad. Singapore does both, but with a crucial difference. It has built a local population that is genuinely world-class. Singaporean engineers, doctors, lawyers, and entrepreneurs compete at the highest levels globally. Many go abroad, gain experience at the best institutions and companies in the world, and come back because Singapore is worth coming home to. Dubai has taken a very different path. Roughly 90% of people living in Dubai are expatriates. The local Emirati population is a small minority in their own city. This creates a fundamental tension. The city is built on borrowed talent with no guarantee of permanence. When economies shift, when opportunities appear elsewhere, that talent walks out the door and onto a plane. Singapore has the same international appeal, but it also offers something Dubai struggles to match: a real path to belonging. Permanent residency and citizenship are achievable for skilled workers who commit to the country. Over time, those people invest in Singapore, not just economically, but emotionally. They raise families, they start businesses, they vote, they stay. A city that can retain its talent across generations builds something compounding and unstoppable. A city that perpetually rents its workforce is always one recession away from emptying out. Point 4. Economic complexity and diversification. Oil made Dubai rich, but oil is also Dubai's longest shadow. The United Arab Emirates has made genuine and impressive strides in diversifying its economy. Tourism, real estate, aviation, and financial services have all grown dramatically. Dubai is no longer purely dependent on hydrocarbons the way some of its Gulf neighbors are. That is real progress, and it deserves acknowledgement. But Singapore built economic complexity from nothing and with nothing. It became a global hub for shipping and logistics, then financial services, then pharmaceuticals and biomedical research, then technology and advanced manufacturing. At every stage, it moved up the value chain deliberately and strategically. Today, Singapore is home to some of the most sophisticated industries on Earth. Companies do not just set up offices there for tax reasons. They genuinely build and innovate there because the ecosystem supports it. Dubai's economy, while more diverse than it once was, still relies heavily on real estate speculation, tourism, and its position as a regional connector. These are valuable industries, but they are also fragile. When property bubbles burst, as happened dramatically in 2009, the damage is severe. Singapore's economic complexity gives it resilience. When one sector struggles, others carry the weight. That kind of balance takes generations of careful policy to create. Point 5. Rule of law versus rule of power. This point is uncomfortable, but it is essential. In Singapore, the law applies to everyone. That does not mean Singapore is perfect. There are genuine criticisms about civil liberties, restrictions on press freedom, and a political system that has been dominated by one party for over 60 years. Those critiques are valid and important. But here is what Singapore does get right. If you sign a contract in Singapore, it will be honored. If someone breaks that contract, you can take them to court and expect a fair and efficient outcome. The World Bank consistently ranks Singapore among the top countries globally for ease of enforcing contracts and resolving commercial disputes. Businesses know where they stand. In Dubai, the legal environment for foreigners and businesses can be unpredictable. There have been high-profile cases of executives jailed over business disputes, of contracts voided without clear legal basis, and of foreigners discovering that the legal system offers far less protection than they expected. The ruling family and their allies operate in a sphere that ordinary legal processes simply do not reach. For day-to-day commerce, Dubai works well enough. But for deep, long-term capital commitment, for the kind of investment that drives generational wealth creation, nothing replaces the confidence that the law will protect you, no matter who you are. Point 6. Urban planning with a soul. Both cities are extraordinary feats of urban design. Singapore has some of the world's most ambitious architecture.
Gardens by the Bay alone is enough to make any urban planner weep with joy. But what Singapore has done that Dubai has not is plan a city around people first and spectacle second. Singapore's public transport system is among the best on earth. Clean, punctual, affordable, and genuinely used by everyone, from students to senior executives. The city is walkable in ways that Dubai simply is not. Singapore has invested in green spaces, community centers, and public housing that is genuinely high quality and available to the vast majority of its population. The famous Housing Development Board flats house roughly 80% of Singaporeans. They own those flats. That creates stability, wealth, and genuine community. Dubai is a city built for cars and for the wealthy. The public transport exists, but is limited. Walkability in most of the city is almost impossible given the heat and the sprawling infrastructure. The contrast between the gleaming towers of downtown and the accommodation of low-wage migrant workers in distant labor camps is stark and troubling. A city that plans primarily for spectacle and the elite will always have a hollow center, no matter how many records it breaks for the tallest or the biggest or the most expensive.
Point 7. The treatment of workers. This might be the most important point of all, and it is often the most ignored. How a city treats its most vulnerable workers tells you everything about what it truly values. Singapore is not perfect here. There have been documented issues with foreign domestic workers and the conditions faced by lower-wage migrants. These are serious concerns. But Dubai's record on migrant labor is among the most troubling of any major global city. Hundreds of thousands of workers from South Asia and Southeast Asia have built Dubai's skyline under a system called kafala, which ties workers to their employers in ways that critics and human rights organizations around the world have described as exploitative. Workers have had their passports confiscated. They have faced conditions of debt bondage. Heat-related deaths on construction sites have been underreported for years. The human cost of Dubai's rise is enormous and largely invisible to the tourists sipping cocktails in luxury hotels. Singapore has built its success with a greater degree of respect for the people who do the work. Not perfect, not without fault, but fundamentally more humane. A city that exploits the foundation it stands on is always building on sand, no matter how tall the towers reach.
Point 8. Innovation and the startup ecosystem. Both Dubai and Singapore have invested heavily in becoming startup hubs. Both offer attractive tax environments. Both have accelerator programs, government funding, and ambitions to produce the next generation of billion-dollar companies. But there is a significant gap in outcomes. Singapore has produced a genuinely thriving startup ecosystem. Companies like Grab, Sea Limited, and Razer emerged from Singapore and became global forces. The city has deep connections to Silicon Valley and to major Asian technology markets simultaneously. Its universities produce research that connects directly to commercial applications. The venture capital community there is sophisticated, experienced, and global in its networks. Dubai's startup scene is growing, but remains younger and thinner. Many of the companies it celebrates are regional operations that have not broken through to global significance. The pool of local technical talent is smaller. The culture of risk-taking and failure, which is absolutely essential to genuine innovation, is less established. Entrepreneurship requires a willingness to fail publicly and try again. That mindset takes generations to normalize in a society. Singapore has been building it since the 1980s. Dubai is still in the early chapters of that story.
Point 9. Geopolitical stability and strategic positioning. Location matters enormously in global commerce, and both cities have used their geography brilliantly. Singapore sits at the crossroads of some of the world's busiest shipping lanes. The Strait of Malacca connects the Indian Ocean to the Pacific, and Singapore sits right at its mouth. That geography is priceless. But geography alone is not enough. Singapore has navigated extraordinarily complex geopolitical relationships with remarkable skill. Sitting between the giants of China and India,
maintaining close ties with the United States, and managing its relationship with a much larger Malaysia, Singapore has never had the luxury of making enemies. That necessity forced it to become one of the most diplomatically sophisticated small nations in history. Dubai benefits from being a regional hub for the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia, but the broader Gulf region carries geopolitical risk that Singapore simply does not face. Conflicts in the region, sanctions environments, and the volatility of neighboring states all create uncertainty that no amount of luxury development can fully insulate against. Singapore's neighborhood is complex too, but decades of careful diplomacy have made it about as stable a platform as a small nation can build. That stability compounds like interest over time, attracting more investment, more talent, and more trust with every passing decade.
Point 10. The long game versus the show. Here is the final and perhaps deepest difference between these two cities. Singapore plays the long game. Every major policy, every infrastructure investment, every social program is designed with decades in mind. The founding leaders of Singapore famously thought in 50-year horizons. They made difficult, unpopular decisions because they knew the payoff would come long after the criticism faded. Dubai, for all its extraordinary achievements, has sometimes prioritized the show. The tallest building, the most extravagant hotel, the most spectacular artificial island. These projects capture the world's imagination. They are genuinely breathtaking, but they are also, in many cases, built more for prestige than for productive economic purpose. The Palm Jumeirah is iconic. It is also prone to flooding, expensive to maintain, and disconnected from the fabric of the city. Singapore builds less for the cameras and more for the future. Its long-term water strategy, its sovereign wealth fund, its meticulous land use planning all reflect a government that thinks about consequences and sustainability at a level that is genuinely rare in the world. That is the gap no amount of oil money can close overnight. You cannot purchase a 60-year track record of disciplined, visionary governance. You have to earn it, slowly, painfully, and without shortcuts.
So here we are, two of the most ambitious cities ever built by human hands, separated by more than just geography. Dubai is extraordinary. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. It has pulled off miracles of development that would have seemed like pure fantasy just 50 years ago. It will keep growing, keep dazzling, and keep attracting dreamers from around the world. But Singapore represents something different. Something rarer. It is proof that a nation with nothing, no oil, no land, no natural advantages, can rise to the absolute top of the world through sheer intelligence, discipline, and a commitment to doing things the right way, even when the wrong way is faster. That is an inspiring story, not just for cities, but for all of us. The race between these two cities is not just about skylines and GDP. It is about what kind of future we want to build. One that dazzles for a generation, or one that endures for centuries? That question should keep all of us thinking long after this video ends. If this got you thinking, if it sparked something in you, do not keep it to yourself. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to know which city you think wins in the long run and why. If you learned something new today, hit that like button because it truly helps more people find this content. And if you want more deep dives into the stories behind the world's most powerful cities and economies, subscribe right now. There is so much more coming, and you do not want to miss it.